Hey everyone, so this tutorial explains how I made the Creative Needle Bishop pattern with the shoulder closure. Side shoulder closure, say that 10 times fast. Alright, so I made this pattern 3 times now, 2 before Audrey was born and 1 recently around 3 months or so. This pattern has become one of my favorite bishop patterns. I think the side closure is so neat, it sort of just blends right in, the smocking just looks continuous, it's very fluid, it's neat. I used the day gown size of the pattern for all 3 bishops. Now it is quite long, it is a day gown, and it has a deep 5-inch hem allowance, so keep that in mind if you want to make a shorter style, just shorten the pattern when you're cutting it. So to get started, cut your pattern pieces so you'll have some bias strips, 2 sleeves, 1 front piece cut on the fold, and then 1 back piece cut on the fold. And I put a little notch in the back sleeve so I know where the placket is supposed to stop. I'll get to that later. To do the sleeves, you have a few options on how to finish the bottom raw edge. You can attach lace using the zigzag stitch, and I've got a more detailed video of that process that I'll link below if anyone needs it. Another option is using a strip of bias band to enclose the edges. Similar process to how I'll show the neckline later on in the video. For this 3rd bishop that I made using this pattern, I went ahead and did a cap sleeve. Now making the pattern is easy. You just draw how long the sleeve should end, and this goes by whatever the child's arm circumference is. And now go up 1.5 inches on each side and then 2 inches in the middle, and you're going to connect these points with a gradual curve. It's easy peasy, I promise. Now if you want to do the cap sleeve method, you'll need to cut out 4 pieces total. If not, just fast forward to the next step, and I have all the time blocks laid out in the description box below. So first you'll gather the bottom of your sleeves using 2 rows of gather stitches. Then I decided to stitch from one side around the gradual curve top to the other side. I wanted the side of the cap sleeves to be left out from that sleeve seam. If you wanted those sides in the sleeve seam, like on this dress, then just sew the gradual curve. Don't sew the sides. But either way, sew them with right sides together. I hope all of this is making sense. Then you'll turn the cap right side out after clipping the gradual edge and snipping the corners so they make a neat point. I like to gently slide my scissors into the corner to help define the point. I really should get one of those pointer tools, it just hasn't happened yet. You can go back and understitch the top of this cap sleeve if you like. It does make a neater look, but I was kind of lazy with this purple bishop, whatever. So then you'll adjust the gathers on the sleeve until they match up the cap length. You'll sew the cap onto the sleeve. The right side of the cap will be touching the wrong side of the sleeve. I'll say that one more time. The right side of the cap is going to be touching that wrong side of the sleeve. The cap is going to be turned up to the right side of the sleeve. So I stitch this in place, trim the raw edges down to about 1/4 inch, and then run a zigzag over them to enclose the raw edges. Now when I say run a zigzag, yes, I do have a serger. You could use a serger. Mine is not set up, and zigzags are fine with me. I've gotten a couple questions here and there about that, so you do you. Okay, so here's what I mean. Now the cap folds up, and now both of the right sides of the cap are facing up along with the right side of the sleeve. Okay, so since I did the cap sleeve, I wanted the sleeve to be above Audrey's elbows, so I had to trim 1.5 inches off the sleeves as well as the front and back pieces so all the neckline will still line up. If you just do the lace, don't do this step. I was fine with the sleeves and the lace, and I'll show you her in all of these outfits at the end of the video. I think that helps people with sizing, at least I hope. Okay, so then start attaching the sleeves to the dress using French seams, and I have a video on how to do seams that I'll link below. The key here is to trim the fabric really close to the seam so the French seam will be tiny and will go through your pleat without an issue. My seams are about 1/16 of an inch or so. This also means you won't have any bulky seams staring back at you, haunting you in your sleep. Oh goodness, I need more coffee. Anywho, okay. So to keep things easy for my mind, I attach both sleeves to the front of the bishop first. Now where you sew the back of this dress is going to determine which shoulder the dress closes on. For example, if you sew it on the right sleeve, then the dress will go together over the left shoulder, and vice versa. If you sew it on the left sleeve, then the dress closure will be on the right shoulder. I hope that all that is making sense. So now that I've gotten the dress together, I've got the back, right sleeve, front, and then left sleeve. So this is going to close over the left shoulder. I really hope this is making sense. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter too much, so don't stress about it. Your little one will look cute regardless of which shoulder the dress is closed over. So now that we've settled that, roll your dress up on a dowel. This makes things so much easier when running them through the pleater. You don't need to get fabric super tight. Your main goal here is just to keep the neckline in line with itself. And when I get to a sleeve, I just sort of fold it neatly and keep on rolling. I threaded about 8 half-space pleating needles. This means I'll only smock 6 rows since the top and bottom row are used as holding rows. But remember, I took 1.5 inches off from the top of this dress. On the other 2 bishops that I made, I did 7 half spaces for the white one, and that includes 2 holding rows, so I only smocked 5. And then I did 14 half spaces. Again, this includes 2 holding rows for the pink dress. I do have a video on how to smock and how to pleat if you'd like more detail, and I will leave the link to those below. So now we can move on to blocking this dress. And even though there's a side closure, I'm still going to use this blocking board, and I'll leave the link of it to below if you want to get one. They are on the expensive side, but they make things so useful. So if you're only doing a couple bishops a year, I don't know if I would buy one. I'd maybe just muscle through using tissue paper on my ironing board. But if you're making, as many bishops that I make, it is definitely worth the investment. Anywho, the board isn't set up for a bishop that closes on the shoulder, but really think about it. The important things that you need to follow are the curve of that neckline, so you don't have the turtleneck effect to your dress. So pull the threads out from the side closures. And yes, the seams are marked on the board, but that's really a general statement. It's kind of guesswork, if you will. The really important thing is that you follow that neckline so you have a pretty curve. So I'll tie one side of threads into groups of 2 or 3 threads and trim up those ends. Then I'll pull on the other end of threads before I begin blocking and shaping the dress. And this way I make sure that I've got all the slack out of that thread. So I pin the dress, adjust the gathers, pull the threads, pin the dress, adjust the gathers, pull the threads. Kind of a little bit of a process until the neckline lays flat and is mimicking the curve on the shaping board. From there, you can tie the other side of threads into groups of 2s or 3s. Some people like to seam the bishop and let it sit on the shaping board to dry before they remove it. I honestly haven't found a difference in doing that, so I just skip that step. But FYI, if you want to do that, you do you. So then you'll have a pretty curved neckline. Join the dress together at the side seams using French seams. You'll start this seam at the clip mark. And now we're on to finishing that shoulder closure. Say that 10 times fast, my goodness, y'all. Bear with me. For the first 2 bishops, I used the continuous placket method, and if you want to do that, you'll take a piece of bias strip about 2 inches wide, sew it onto the opening, and you'll have to angle it off towards the bottom. Stitch carefully, and you shouldn't catch any of that fabric. It shouldn't be gobbed up. Then you'll trim everything up, fold the bias band over twice, and sew that in place by hand. Instead of that method, what I did for this purple bishop was just zigzag each side. Here's the thing, at least to me, the amount of effort and quality of work depends on the garment. So the 2 bishops I did before were more sentimental and out of nicer fabric, the sheer dainty stuff. Whereas this is a nice twill, very soft but not delicate. It's kind of like a casual piece, so I don't mind, getting away with little finishes like this. Of course, it's sewing, you do you. So regardless of the method you choose, you'll see the sleeve side turns under and comes on top of that dress. And then I lengthen my stitch a little bit on my machine, and I stitch just a smidgen below that first pleating row. Just like the next needle space over from that pleating thread, I'll stitch there. And I'll try to be as even with my stitches as possible. Then you can take your 2-inch wide bias strip, fold that in half lengthwise, and match the raw edges of the folded bias strip to the raw edge of the neckline. Using the previous stitches as a guide, the little trick, you're welcome, stitch the bias strip to the neckline. Make sure to leave about a 1/2 inch on each side so you can turn this under when you hand sew the bias strip in place later on. Then you'll trim up the seam just enough so until the bias strip reaches the stitches on the other side of the dress. I like to use some of these machine stitches to secure my hand stitches with later on. And if you've seen my videos before, you know that I like to save all this hand sewing until I'm done with my machine sewing. Oh, and I recently did a video on how to get a pretty neckline. Actually, it's using this garment. So go check that out if you'd like more details, and I'll link that below. So then you can join the side seams using French seams. This is what my finished sleeve caps look like if you were curious. I'm going to put a little tack on the underneath of them to keep them in place. So now you've completed the dress minus the hem and handwork. To do the hem, I'll turn about a ½ inch under and iron that in place, and I do this all the way around the dress. Then I come back and turn another 4 3/4 up, since this is a 5-inch hem allowance allowed, but really those measures can be whatever you think looks good. They're by no means set in stone. And then I'll turn up another 4 3/4 inches, a few inches down the hemline, and put another pin there. And then I'll iron in between the two pins, and I cut it good enough for me. I say that I think it's important to hand sew the hem in place. Please don't run this through a machine unless it's a very casual garment for you. I mean, you do you, but I really think hand sewing it looks much nicer. And then I finished the soldier closure with snaps, so they don't get in the way of the smocking. And I've got a video on how to hand sew snaps in place that I will link below as well. So there you have it. This is the finished bishop on the 3-month-old Audrey. Like I mentioned, I did the same size, day gown size, for the pink version and white version. And both of these clips, she's around 1 month old. Isn't she adorable? I hope these little footages are helping you with sizing. That's why I include them in the video. And in this clip, she's in the white version as a brand spanking new newborn, still in the hospital. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and I hope to catch y'all next time.